What happens when the very tools that keep you safe disappear overnight? When a law meant to protect instead pushes you further into danger? When the platforms you depend on delete you? Hi, I'm Kristina Dove. My project, On the Razor's Edge, Women's Sex Work, Roles of Advocacy, and the Law, begins in the aftermath of these questions. It explores how women in sex work survive the impacts of U.S. anti-trafficking legislation, digital censorship, and stigma, while building networks of care, mutual aid, and resistance. In the summer of 2024, supported by the Lemelson Honors Program, I spent 3 months conducting fieldwork. This included 37 semi-structured interviews with current and former sex workers across platforms and generations, and participant observation at a sex worker-led community organization in Los Angeles. I came to this research with deep questions about labor, survival, and personhood, questions shaped by both academic curiosity and lived proximity. Ethnography offered a way to sit with complexity rather than flatten it, and to center voices too often dismissed. In 2018, the U.S. passed FOSTA-SESTA, the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act, and the Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act. These laws changed Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which had previously protected websites from being sued for what users posted, things like Craigslist ads, Instagram captions, or even a tweet. On paper, FOSTA-SESTA aimed to stop sex trafficking, but in reality, it blurred the line between consensual sex work and exploitation, making it a federal crime to facilitate or promote prostitution online. What followed was a digital panic. Craigslist removed its adult services section. Backpage, widely used by sex workers to screen clients and advertise services, was seized by the FBI. For many, it was a lifeline, a way to vet clients, assert boundaries, and work more safely indoors. Its removal forced many back onto the streets, where risks were higher and protections fewer. This wasn't just a reaction. It was the logic of the platforms themselves. Nick Cernisek's theory of platform capitalism helps us make sense of this. Platforms don't just host content or connect people. They control the infrastructure of digital life. Their goal isn't safety. It's to avoid liability, maintain public image, and protect revenue. In that equation, sex workers become expendable. And who helped shape these laws behind closed doors? Big tech. Originally, FOSTA-SESTA could have allowed trafficking survivors to sue major platforms like Facebook or Google. But tech companies didn't want that liability. They lobbied through trade groups like NetChoice and the Internet Association to rewrite the law in their favor. To stay compliant, platforms tightened moderation and banned anything linked to sex work. Nick Cernisek shows that platforms gain power through data, scale, and control, and in doing so, they decide who gets access to income, safety, and visibility. Community guidelines become tools of exclusion, often targeting those already pushed to the margins. We see this with Monroe, who is a veteran dancer and organizer I interviewed. She led the unionization effort at Star Garden, one of the only successful stripper strikes since the Lusty Lady in the 90s. One day, a client sent Monroe a sexualized message along with a tip through Venmo. She didn't reply, but shortly after, her account was flagged. The client's account? Still active. That was just the beginning. Her Venmo? Banned. Her Instagram business account? Deleted. Her LLC paperwork? Denied at a bank after hours of waiting. No explanation, just policy. They just said no, she told me. They didn't want the liability. She couldn't access the same basic financial tools others use to run small businesses. Now, she relies on workarounds, like using her husband's Venmo to collect tips. After the Star Garden campaign, she faced union-busting tactics from club management and long delays from the labor board. Still, Monroe continues to dance, moving between clubs, adapting to shifting conditions, and building power where she can. Inez, a street-based worker, took down her website after her friend was arrested in a sting. It wasn't just legality that pushed her offline. It was fear. Fear of arrest, fear of losing everything. So she returned to the street, where risk was higher and money was lower. But the damage isn't just logistical, it's existential. Sandy, another participant, said, "So much trauma. If your body is touched over and over again, it will manifest as trauma. is just having a body. The same way a dentist's back aches from leaning over. That's their trauma. I just want to know how to cleanse oneself of it. How to forgive yourself. Not even forgive yourself, but not let it eat at you. Because society is already eating at you too. Sandy's comparison reframes trauma as aware of repetitive labor. Not a personal flaw, but the toll of surviving work that's both demanded and condemned. She wasn't asking for pity. She was naming the cost of being both hyper-visible and structurally erased. Her story reveals what it means to carry stigma not only in public, but deep within. This is the life on the razor's edge, where the same visibility that helps you survive can just as easily put you at risk. And this instability isn't just existential, it's structural. Judith Butler describes precarity as a politically induced condition where certain populations, like sex workers, are systematically made vulnerable to violence, displacement, and instability, all while being denied institutional protection. The loss here is not just about money or platforms, it's about personhood, about being recognized as a full human being with boundaries, worth, and voice. For sex workers, this precarity is both designed and enforced. FOSTA-SESTA didn't just criminalize sex work. It criminalized the infrastructure that allowed many to survive it. It restructured who is allowed to exist online, whose labor is recognized, and whose safety is sacrificed in the name of liability management and moral panic. Luna, a sex worker with experience across many forms of the trade and a longtime community organizer, didn't set out to become an activist. For her, advocacy wasn't separate from sex work, it was an extension of it. Over time, survival meant more than navigating danger. It meant organizing safety, sharing knowledge, and redistributing care. She helped start a grassroots organization that provides housing, mutual aid, and harm reduction tools. Our survival, in a lot of ways, comes from each other, she told me. The laws, these policies, they don't protect us. Our biggest tool is our community. We take care of each other. This spirit is captured in Gerald Visner's theory of survivance, a term rooted in indigenous resistance that describes not just survival, but the refusal of victimhood and erasure. While I honor its indigenous origins, I extend its use here to reflect how sex workers resist disappearance by asserting presence and reclaiming voice. Sex workers are not passive subjects of policy. They form crisis response teams. They redistribute funds. They create systems of care where institutions have failed. Celine, another participant, put it clearly. If I don't have what you need, I know someone who does. That's what community is. We pool our resources. We stop fighting over scraps. This research isn't just about sex work. It's about labor, survival, and recognition under capitalism. Sex workers exist at the intersection of surveillance and exclusion. FOSTA-SESTA didn't just criminalize platforms. It signaled who could be visible online and who could be erased without consequence. And yet, sex workers are calling for more than survival. They demand autonomy, safety, and recognition, not just for themselves, but for anyone navigating precarious labor. As one participant told me, it's not just about working. It's about being seen as a person. When someone knows what you do and still sees you as worthy of care, that's what changes things. Recognition isn't a luxury. It's a condition of justice. And when sex workers are denied it, the consequences ripple outward. Content creators, gig workers, freelancers, we're all facing platform dependence, algorithmic bias, and sudden erasure. Sex workers have long called themselves the canaries in the coal mine. Today, they're the canaries in a digital one, sounding the alarm on how censorship and surveillance threaten us all. Even on the razor's edge, they carve out safety, dignity, and power, and they remind us, when sex workers win, we all do.